make another video about vectors, but it's going to be pretty short. So this is another video about vectors, my second video. So it's going to be short. It's only going to go over one thing, which is components of a vector. So in the last video, we covered how to graph and add vectors. Now we're going to talk about something called the components of a vector. So here's my coordinate axes. And remember, we have our unit vectors I, which is 1 unit in the x direction, and j, which is 1 unit in the y direction. And remember, we have a vector, let's call it v, and remember we wrote that if it goes to a point m, n, then this vector is represented as mi plus nj. So that's how we talked about graphing vectors in our last video about them. Now we're going to do a different way called components, and it involves trigonometry. So if you don't know trigonometry, you won't understand this. But I have videos on trigonometry, so you can watch them. And so let's get started. So I'm going to draw another set of coordinate axes, x and y, and I'm not going to draw the unit vectors because we won't be needing them. So let's say we have a vector v, and its magnitude is v units long. So we know the magnitude of the vector. So let's say we have a vector, we know how long it is, we know how long this arrow is. So to write the magnitude of a vector, we put absolute value bars around it. So the magnitude of v, so the absolute of v. And let's say we also know an angle, the angle from the x-axis. So we know that angle, let's call it theta. And now we're asked to find the x components and the y component. So the y component is how far up the vector goes, and the x component is how far to the side it goes. So let's use trigonometry. So we have sine theta equals, let's call this x component x. Let's call this y component y, and this x component x. So we have sine of theta equals y over the magnitude of v, because opposite over hypotenuse. And then we get that y equals v sine theta. And similarly, if we solve for x, we'd get that x equals v cos theta. So that would be the x and y components. So that means the coordinates of this vector would be v cosine theta, comma, v sine theta. Because we have the y coordinate over here and the x coordinate over here. So that's the components of a vector. So the x component equals v cosine theta. So v cosine theta is the magnitude of the vector in the x direction, and the y component equals the magnitude of the vector times the sine of the angle it makes with the x-axis. So those are how you find the x components of a vector. And if we use this that we wrote up here, substituting for m, we'll get that the vector v equals v cosine theta times I plus v sine theta times j. So that would be how far it goes in the x direction. That would be how far the vector goes in the y direction. And we know the magnitude of the vector, or how long it is. So that's what components are, and all of these vector videos are for my next video, which is going to be on two-dimensional kinematics. Hope you like this video.